Dear learners, Namaste and welcome back to Middle Class University. I am your host Abhijit Holla. In this video, I am going to explain about public-private partnership, under which I am explaining natural monopoly and competition, and I am comparing both of them. So this was the recap of the previous videos where I explained natural monopoly as well as competition. But in this video, I'm going to tell you how this works under public-private partnership, which is shortly abbreviated as triple P. After that, I'm also explaining the concept of incentive compatibility and also giving the examples with respect to the different economic and financial returns. That is the infrastructure with different economic and financial returns. So let us start. So let us now learn about the natural monopoly and competition. So what is natural monopoly? We already know from the property of the infrastructure that it always has high upfront costs. But we also knew that if it has high upfront costs, then why does people invest in it? Because of the long-term returns which they get from that particular infrastructure. And I also said that when it is a long-term process, it makes sense for one particular entity to run it, which leads to what we call as economies of scale or economies of scope, and that eventually leads to the thing called as natural monopoly. So this setup is usually best served by a single provider, as I told you, and in most of the cases the government will be that particular provider. So why does government become that particular provider? Because the cost which is there for that particular infrastructure per unit, that will be made sure that it will always be low. So that's why it is always run by the government. However, we know that the competition may drive innovation and reduce costs in that. How? Let us move on to the next slide and learn about it. Let us learn about the example of competition. In this case, let's suppose we assume that the monopoly of the market is split into two competing providers. So now when we actually split that monopoly and we give it to a different number of providers, there what happens is that initially the price will be high. Okay, that is understandable because we know always the costs from compared to monopoly and the competition will not be as same as it is initially. So it will be high. But eventually what will happen is that after a period of a certain amount of years, let's suppose 3 years or 4 years, the private entities or the private competitors will compete in that particular domain and make sure that they bring down the prices and they win in the market. So this is the graph where I have explained cost of service over time. Now initially the cost of the competition, which is the green line over here, the cost of the competition will always be high and the cost of monopoly will be constant. Let us assume that it is always constant. It will always be constant in general cases, and initially in the competition the prices are high. So after that, when we move on to the second year, the cost of the competition has come down to certain amount, but still it is not lower than or equal to the monopoly. But after a number of years, that is here we can see at the span of 5 years, we can see that the cost during the monopoly and the cost during the competition is almost the same. And after that, after certain amount of time, like 6 years, 8 years or 10 years, the cost will come even more down when we compare it to the natural monopoly. Now this is an exaggerated graph just to visualize how the price per unit in competition comes down with respect to monopoly. So this was all about the example and the graphical representation of natural monopoly and competition. Let us now learn about incentive compatibility and its role in public-private partnership, and also let us discuss the examples with respect to the incentive compatibility. So first things first, what is incentive compatibility? That is, the incentive compatibility is the factor which ensures that all the parties involved in a project have aligned motivations, so they act in ways that benefit both themselves and project's overall goals. So the main goal of incentive compatibility is the provider or the private entity which has joined hands with the public entity to finish a particular project should also benefit themselves. Also, they have to benefit the public that is the partner in the public-private partnership. So both are benefited. In order to make sure that both are benefited, there will be a particular amount of incentive. So that should be compensated. So that is what we call as incentive compatibility. So now let us discuss more about the examples of incentive compatibility. We know that the sectors like ports and telecom have both economic and financial returns, making them attractive for a public-private partnership without much intervention. Here, this is a no-brainer, right? A telecom industry can make profits and also serve the society. So in this case, to make profits, the private entities will enter, and to serve the society, the public entities will enter. So this is in the case of ports and telecom. And in the case of hyperloop and space travel, no, like they currently have low economic and financial returns until the technology matures. That is, until we figure out a way through which we can exploit them commercially or financially. As for now, we cannot consider this under public-private partnership. So now moving on to the next slide, that is the road project. As I earlier mentioned, road projects provide economic benefits. What are the economic benefits? For example, now if a new road is being constructed on a particular place, the people who actually bought their land nearby, their site value increases per square feet in a drastic amount, because they are gonna get access to the transportation. Through that, trades will happen. Through that, the country's economy will prosper. So road projects will always boost the economic development, or it will give economic benefits, but it cannot attract private investment. How? Because it is a public infrastructure, and we cannot always keep the pricing of the toll high. But so what will happen is that the private entities will always often hesitate in order to take up those kind of projects. So here the incentive compatibility factor comes into rescue. So what solutions we can observe in these cases is that we can allocate nearby land parcels to the private developers. For example, if there is a 1 kilometer stretch of road, there nearby we can give them prime places to start up their other business outlets like restaurants and also fuel stations and those kind of businesses, so that they can make profits with those outlets also, and also then eventually they can also make profits through road, even though the cost per unit in the roadway is low. So this was a solution. And also another solution here might be offering subsidies. So if no contractor is coming forward to take up a project, government will actually subsidize, the government will offer subsidies in order to attract the contractors or the developers. So this was about the road projects and the factors which is actually necessary in public-private partnership, that is the incentive compatibility. So let us now move on to the next slide. So as we know, nuclear power plants can give high financial returns, but we always know that the extremities in a nuclear power plant is very bad. We have also heard about the Chernobyl, leak incident where multiple people lost their lives. Multiple people have genetic mutations, and the newborn babies are paralyzed. Newborn babies are actually, what do we say, physically challenged, and those kind of things will often happen. It will not often happen, but it will often happen when the measures are not taken properly for the safety. So what government can do in these cases, if a government want to set up a new nuclear power plant in a particular area, in this case, since the private entity which invested in the project can make high financial returns, now government can ask them to incentivize for the safety measures and also community support. In future, if this kind of accident or any extremity takes place, then this amount can come to rescue. Not that the amount will be equivalent to the people's lives, but we know that the nuclear energy can be the future. So in this case, what will government do is that government will ask the contractor or ask the developers to invest in safety measures and also invest in community support kind of things. So this was all about the nuclear power plant negotiations with respect to public-private partnership. So this was all about today's video. Like the video and share it with your friends. Subscribe to my channel and press that bell icon to get frequent notifications of my video. And also, I run a newsletter in LinkedIn with the same name, that is the Middle Class University. Subscribe to that as well. Thank you.